let's go ahead and get into essentially what I will consider the biggest battle our generation will face, and that is centralization versus decentralization. And the reason I think it's the biggest battle we will face is because I think that will directly determine kind of the direction that the world goes into and whether or not the individual will maintain autonomy across the board and sovereignty, or if the individual will be completely controlled and manipulated by their government in any region. Reason being is that as you move towards centralization of things, whether that be media, finances, etc., it goes under the control of the government, and then the government can basically control the entire people via, of course, the economy, the news that they are receiving, and so on. We've definitely seen that sort of behavior in the past. We definitely already see the battle going on, specifically within traditional media versus, the internet, essentially, right? And the ability to obtain information outside of mass media and whatever they're pushing, and the control that has been moving back and forth kind of between these two things. I want to remind everybody of something very important, is that decentralization is very hard to defeat if the individuals basically want to continue to participate in that sort of ecosystem, because even if you have the power of the governments or whatever it may be, companies, so on, it still comes down to the fact that the main thing decentralization needs is numbers, and that's the amount of people that participate within it. So they may have the power, but we have the numbers. That's actually from a Rise Against song. So just remember that. They may have the power, but we have the numbers, and the most important thing for decentralization is the numbers. And let's get into it. Biden's executive order calls for highest urgency on CBDC research and development. The president has called on the Treasury Department to spearhead a series of reports looking into CBDC technology and how to implement them, if doing so is deemed to be in the national interest. U.S. President Joe Biden called for an urgent government-wide focus to be placed on the research and development of a potential central bank digital currency in his executive order signed Wednesday. The order calls for a full-scale assessment of the potential benefits and risks of a CBDC, both for consumers and investors, as well as the broader U.S. financial system. Biden has ordered the Treasury Department to spearhead the research and report, with input from the other federal agencies, including the Secretary of Commerce and the Secretary of Homeland Security. The assessment is also supposed to determine whether the implementation of a CBDC would be in the national interest. There are several organizations that already researching and piloting CBDCs in the United States, including the Boston Fed. We talked about that not too long ago, which is partnered with Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, on CBDC technology, and the Digital Dollar Project. Be quiet, Siri. All right. A public-private partnership founded by consulting firm Accenture and Chris Giancarlo, the former chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. However, U.S. efforts have moved noticeably slower than those in other countries, including China, whose digital yuan is already being piloted in cities across the country. The order suggests that Biden, who noted that over 100 countries are exploring or piloting CBDCs, does not want the U.S. to get left behind. David Treat, global blockchain lead at Accenture, told CoinDesk that the government will need to work with industry leaders if it wants to get things done right and quickly. Quote, the executive order catalyzes the important work to pilot, test, and advance the development of a CBDC, end quote, Treat said. We are excited about the pilot programs that the Digital Dollar Project will launch with our multi-stakeholder community, end quote. The Digital Dollar Project has promised 5 pilot projects, which are planned to kick off in the coming months to evaluate whether and how a US CBDC would benefit people who are unbanked or underbanked, a key point stressed in Biden's executive order. Here's the problem. We know we have a problem with people not having banks, etc. Pretty much at this point, everybody, even homeless, etc., in the United States have access to a cell phone. If they wanted banking services in a decentralized manner, we just need to educate people on how to participate within cryptocurrency. The danger that you have of having a central bank digital currency basically help get more people banked, etc. They give that out to everybody, maybe like they do the free cell phones. Is that essentially you now have all of that control in their hands. What we should be working on is educational programs surrounding crypto, not some government handout crypto that is going to potentially increase the inflation rate and also centralize the control of that currency under the federal government without even banks being involved, which is going to be the scariest move by far. Quote, the work to build private-public partnership for digital asset experimentation takes time, end quote. Jennifer Lasseter, executive director of the Digital Dollar Project, told CoinDesk. So to do government reports, I don't know what that means. So to do government reports. Though Biden gave the Treasury Department 6 months to get its research together, experts told CoinDesk it wouldn't be surprising if that deadline were to be extended indefinitely. I added the indefinitely there. So, look, I understand how everything sounds good, right? I understand exactly where the arguments would lie for getting people banked more, having easier access to finances through a CBDC, all these sorts of things. But it moves in the wrong direction and puts the control somewhere else. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about is I watched Bits Be Trippin's video, and I respect Bits and Carter from Bits Be Trippin a lot, immensely. I don't want to get that conflated or anything, but I feel like he's pretty weak on his positioning surrounding CBDCs, surrounding specifically the term safety is where I pick a bone here when in regard to essentially the executive order and wanting to make things safer for the public and so on. He made the age-old comparison of well, people aren't going to participate in it if it's not safe. There's people like my parents. Look, man, I'll tell you straight up, and I know probably my parents are a little younger, but I went over there and sat down with them, reviewed how exchanges work, how to send it to hardware wallets, how to self-custody, and it's an education problem. Getting lazy on the education problem is a problem. You shouldn't get lazy on the education problem and just say, screw it, give the control to the federal government. That's like the opposite. Okay, so a good example, right? We could go to firearms. Well, a lot of people will never train and never know how to use firearms. So we should just make sure that we regulate the firearms so that people don't have as much access to them. Or you could create educational programs that teach people how to utilize firearms. Remember, back in the day, you would shoot BB guns and pellet guns in the Boy Scouts. Maybe now we just need the Boy Scouts teaching self-custody. I don't know. I'm just saying that excuse doesn't fly with me personally. And it shouldn't. And if it's an older generation, then fine, they phase out. Because that's what older generations do. And you educate the younger generation in self-custody and financial autonomy. That's how I personally think about it. I understand the argument. I just disagree. Because I think that what we see here is a straight attack on the individual from the government. That's what I feel that we're seeing here. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific and 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out more clips here, or if you're interested in checking out the entire live show, you can check that out down here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.